Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott with Less of Me Success Stories. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're glad that you joined us. We ask you to please take a moment and share this to your socials, get people to like, subscribe, share it in every way possible so you can get this out there. I'm your host again, Scott King, and my co-host tonight is Robyn Dobbins. How are you, Robyn?
I'm great, Scott. Hi, everyone. Here at Less of Me Stories, we know what it's like to be helpless and hopeless. Your story is not over. You can rewrite it at any time. We provide a platform for people to share their stories and how they reclaim their lives using dietary intervention.
That's right. And as a reminder, neither of us nor our guests are medical professionals. We're not offering medical advice, so we ask you to please consult your medical team before attempting any intervention or dietary intervention. Robyn will be running our chat tonight on YouTube if there's any questions out there, so start thinking about that ahead. And to get into the show tonight, we have our friend Eric Couch. Eric's got a really awesome story. He does low carb / keto. He's had some great success, but his story and his journey has been a real one. There's been some struggles in there, and we want him to get into that. And because everyone's story and everyone's journey is not exactly the same, so that's why we had these guests on here, because we do feel it could be beneficial to everybody's journey and everybody's story. So again, thank you very much, Eric. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, we appreciate you being here. So just you do low carb, you do keto. Talk about how you got into it, where you were before that, what made you look into that for dietary intervention, and just kind of give us a summary.
If I had to go back and start at the beginning, I would say it was the fall of 2020, and I had just started a new job, had new insurance. The place I'd worked at prior had decent insurance, but it really wasn't covering anybody in my area. And I was having to travel a long way just to see a primary care physician. So I was really excited about that. And because I'd got up to 457 pounds. And I knew I had to start doing something or I wasn't going to make it very much longer. I mean, I don't want to be morbid about it, but I was morbidly obese, and it was not good. So I went to I didn't have a primary care physician, so I got one, and I was talking to her, and I said, "Look, I would really like to have bariatric surgery. I feel like I've exhausted everything that I've tried to do, but in reality, I didn't try hard enough. Uh, I was I tell people I was a slave to food because I was using it as a crutch to cover up my stress and my anxiety. And I just, if you would have looked up sedentary lifestyle on Google, my picture would probably have popped up because I was totally sedentary. Office job, come home, sit. I mean, walking from the house to the mailbox was taxing. So, uh, like I said, in September 2020, I went to the doctor and I said, "Look, I want to have bariatric surgery." We started that process, and the bariatric surgeon's office, their nutritionist put me on a 1,500 calorie a day diet and keto because they wanted me to lose like 50 pounds in 2 months before I could even have the surgery. So I did that, but that first week was so tough because they also had me start intermittent fasting. So I was just totally off my eating habits. And while it did work, it was very stressful because I was probably eating all my calories in one meal because I was so hungry. And so the timeline came across and I lost the weight, but my insurance wouldn't cover the procedure. And so I was going to have to pay cash. And I didn't have $10,000, so this has always stuck with me. But a person in their office said, "If you don't have this surgery, you're going to die." And I'm thinking, I've lost 50 pounds just by changing the way I'm eating. I don't think I'm going to die right now. I mean, I may pull out of this parking garage and something happened, but I think I'm going in the right direction. So I left and I just kept doing what I was doing. And so that, like I said, that was September, October of 20. I lost the weight into December because I was going to have the surgery the week between Christmas and New Year's. So May of 21 rolls around and I'm down to 375, and I'm thinking, hey, I'm trucking right along. And I end up, my birthday rolled up and I had a party for my birthday and I fell off the wagon and I never got back on. So fast forward to January of 23, I got back up to 432 pounds. We were on a cruise ship in the Bahamas and I should have been happy, you know, hey, you're in the Bahamas. I didn't like what I seen in the mirror. And so when we got back, I made a deal with myself. I said, enjoy this week because when we get back, it's on. And so I went back intermittent fasting and went back to keto January the 28th of 23. And by April, I had already lost maybe 50 or 60 pounds. I can't exactly remember. But May the 1st is I started, I kind of moved off of keto and went carnivore, went full carnivore for about 2 months and ended up getting down to about 365. And then in September, I did a jiu-jitsu competition and I weighed in at 308. So from January of 23 to September, you know, I lost a significant amount of weight. And then I got injured doing jiu-jitsu. And so I had to stop doing any exercise and had to stop doing any walking. But I didn't gain much because I was still intermittent fasting and staying low carb. And trucked right along. And then February, I got down to 282, my lowest since 2011, maybe 2012. And I don't know what it is about hitting these low marks. I want to celebrate. And I celebrated and fell off the wagon and ended up gaining at my highest, which was about 2 weeks ago, was 307. So I gained 25 pounds back. But got back, had about 5 really good days of eating this week. And I had a binge last night. And, you know, but I've learned that in this process, it's stuff like that's going to happen. And the more important thing is to not let one day turn into a week. So had a really good day today, and I'm really confident about tomorrow. So that's kind of a nutshell of my keto story or low carb. And I feel so much better eating that way than I did my old way because I binged on a bunch of sweet stuff last night and I woke up this morning sick. Yeah, I was just overslept and I did not feel good at all. So that's a nutshell there.
All right, well, I appreciate that. I want to go back really quick to the gastric bypass point. Did you say they had you on keto and 1,500 calories a day? And wow.
Yes, yeah, intermittent. They started off 1410 intermittent fasting, 1,500 calories, and nothing but water. This was prescribed to a dude that was eating fast food a lot. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the pictures you guys had on the preview video. That was me at probably close to 460. And I've never been a big guy. I mean, from the time of course, I was a little husky as a kid. I mean, who's not? You know, when you're 9, 10-year-old, you're going to be husky. But in high school, I couldn't crack 200 pounds for nothing. And even when I got married in 2001, January 2001, my tuxedo was so big we had to pin it on the side because they couldn't get one small enough and they couldn't get one big enough. So we kind of pinned it together. You know, I was kind of like in between a 27 and a 28, but they didn't have any, and we procrastinated because I'm the king of procrastination. And so it wasn't really until about 2008, 2009 when I got divorced is really when I started gaining a lot of weight. But yeah, that was tough. I mean, and like I said, when it did come on mealtime, because I planned my meals, I planned to break my fast around noon, 1 o'clock. So when I was breaking my fast, I was eating all my food that I had, and it was right at 1,500 calories. So I was having to basically start my fast again because I didn't want to, break my caloric restriction, which, in my opinion, I cannot do a caloric restriction. That makes me want to eat even more, and so that don't work for me. It never has, and I think that was one reason when I fell off, it was so hard for me to get back on, because it just rehashed those old feelings like, well, I mean, hey, I could eat like this again. And it didn't take long, and here I was. I mean, I gained 50 plus pounds back just in a little over a year. And I think it was July or August of 2022. I was feeling sorry for myself, and I was like, well, I'm gonna be single the rest of my life. Why does it matter? Just eat what you want to and have fun. So that's what I did.
Mm, that's brutal. Well, I find it so interesting that they put, granted, I'm not pretending like I'm an expert here, but a low carb and keto diet together seems weird, because it's almost like you're defeating each other. It seems like to me in my head, fat adapted / low carb. It seems like it's working against each other. Kind of a wild thing. So I want to ask you about the gastric bypass. Well, I mean, obviously you felt like you needed gastric bypass. What was the reason why you were specifically looking at gastric bypass? Was it you felt like it was the be all end all, or what was the reason behind that?
At the time, I felt like that was my only option that would help me. I didn't. I wish I would have come across, low carb, keto. I wish I'd have come across that myself before, 2020. But I had several friends that had it done and they had success. But I also have a lot of friends that had it done that have not had very good results. And so, I had tried to diet a couple of times and it just didn't work. So, the reason why the doctor told me the reason why they needed me to lose that much weight is because my stomach, if you've seen the pictures, my stomach is way out there. I mean, it was just, it's huge. And they was telling me that they couldn't do the laparoscopic surgery without it, losing that much weight and having my stomach, quote unquote, shrink down some. But, I think the biggest thing was I felt like that was the only thing that was gonna save me. Uh, I wish I'd have knew. Hindsight's always 2020. I wish I'd have known then what I know now. But I feel like because my insurance wouldn't cover it, they said I didn't have any comorbidities to cover it. Even at 460 pounds, my blood pressure was borderline. My cholesterol was borderline. I was not pre-diabetic. So, I mean, I was a big, huge guy, but all my numbers were still, and so that just, those 2 months when I lost all that weight, I'm like, well, I can do that without, being drastic, because, I mean, let's face it, I love to eat. I still love to eat now. I mean, even though a lot of times I think I probably eat too much, but what I'm eating fills me up so much better than 2 years ago. But yeah, I really did. I really felt like that was my last option, and I really didn't. I wasn't ready to leave me, leave my kids without a father. But I always tell people that I feel like that whole insurance situation and the whole not being able to pay for the surgery was a blessing in disguise, because who knows what could have happened. There's side effects and all kind of things that can happen. I'm not saying they would have happened, but you never know. So I can say that I'm thankful that I really didn't have it done.
I would have to agree with that. As somebody that has had it and a failed one and issues with it, I would agree that you kind of dodged a bullet. Yeah, I mean, at the time you wanted it, but you just want it because you feel like it's a surefire solution, and often it's not. Um, and then you also get a bunch of side effects from it and issues because of it. So you're open about the struggles you had. So I want to kind of tap into that a little bit. You mentioned your divorce, and do you feel like stress or what necessarily might be your triggers when you fall off the wagon on your eating, and how do you identify them?
It's I would say it's 100% stress. I'm a stress eater. Uh, I don't drink. I don't smoke. I was a 16-year smoker and I quit in 2012. But you know, I wouldn't really blame my divorce for that because the year of my divorce, I really didn't gain weight. Of course, stress, but between like 2009 and 2010 is really when I started noticing I was gaining weight. I turned 30 in 2008. So I'm assuming that's a lot of the, uh, well, they call it your metabolism starts slowing down at 30. But uh, I was more sedentary. I was working long hours, and I had a long transit. I had a over an hour each way transit back and forth to work. So I was eating a lot of fast food. I was in a very stressful job, still dealing with the divorce, even though the divorce had been finalized for over a year. But um, yeah, that's especially, I would say, the last couple of months or so, when I have, well, it's been more than that. It was what, 4 months now. A lot of my issues has been related to stress. Uh, and I've always turned to food since the late 2000s to deal with stress. I'm not a big fan of alcohol, and I don't do drugs, so food's my crutch. Uh, and it's just like last night. I had a long day at work, and I got home late. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and I had 2 pieces of fried chicken and a biscuit. That's probably the first. That was first time I've ate that late with something like that, and but it just didn't fill me up, and I just went off the rails. But it's just stress.
So when you go off the rails, like you mentioned, and you binge, or you just kind of just not following how you eat, or how you should be eating. Do you have any tips or suggestions, or what works for you to get back on track and clean it back up?
I think when them feelings hit somebody, just like what was funny is they were hitting me during the day yesterday, so I just went out and went for a walk. I mean, it was 11:30 in the morning. It was like 90 degrees outside, and I'm just out there walking, and that helped. I mean, that really helped go with the sweet craving. Uh, Unfortunately, it didn't work when I got home, but I would. One thing I did when I first started, if I was getting sweet cravings, I would eat maybe a handful of olives or banana pepper rings. Um, I'm not really a pickle fan, but I would eat pickles. But I don't know if it was the vinegary part of the banana pepper rings, and of course the olives. That was kind of my go-to if I was getting a sweet craving. Either that, or I would eat some sharp cheddar, something like that. If it was something that if I was still fasting, I was in my fast time, I would pop a package of Element in a bottle of water, a regular, 16 ounce, so it'd be extra salty, and that would cure that craving. But it's for me anyway. If I don't have that stuff around me, can't eat it. And so that's what I try to do the most. But when I do fail, it's because I buy it myself, you know. But the stuff that I ate last night was stuff that my kids had bought for themselves. And so I had to apologize to them because I was like, hey, your dad got a hold of your donut holes, you know. But I mean, that's what I would recommend. I mean, I think everybody has to find their own little niche on when stuff like that. You know, I see a lot of people do, like, they'll keep boiled eggs on them, or bacon, or maybe cut up pieces of steak, or, you know, something. I even seen one guy, he keeps the Starkist individual packages of tuna, you know, something like that, pickles, or, you know, whatever. But as long as you're not grabbing the sweets and the Reese sticks, if you see my post, Reese sticks are my crack. I mean, that's that, whatever they put in there, which we know it's 1,000 different chemicals, but whatever they put in those things, just, it's like a hook, line, and sinker for me. But that would be my suggestion. I'm a big pork rind, like the Baconettes and the Mission brand. They don't have any added things other than fat and salt. So something like that, if you have to have something to chew on, that's what I would recommend.
I agree with you on that. It's and I said the same thing a lot. Is you kind of need to identify. You need to be honest with who you are and what your triggers are, and do your best to eliminate those. Jump into another subject really quick. Now, I apologize if I'm wrong, but you drive truck now, right? Is that correct?
I'm a trucking dispatcher, but I do drive. I've drove a lot more the past couple of 2 or 3 months because my kids are grown, for a lack of better terms. We don't have a lot of stuff going on with them anymore, so I'm able to do some runs after hours. But my main job is dispatching. But I've been in trucking my entire life. Basically from the time I was in diapers, I was in my granddad's truck hauling coal with him. So I can safely say that I've been around it my whole life.
Now, just in case anyone that hauls is watching or listening to this, does the time in the cab create issues, or do you struggle during that time of just like solitary, you know, driving? And
I would say yes. I mean, me personally, when I'm driving, I usually have a podcast going or something. You know, I like to hear other people talking. You know, some drivers like to listen to music or whatever. But I can see where that, you know, being on the road for long stretches of a time just by yourself, I could see where that would be a big factor on drivers. I know some of our drivers, they'll have 2 or 3 people on a phone call, and they'll just talk for hours and hours, you know, because you're out there by yourself. And I do think that's a big factor to drivers these days. There's the sense of community, you know, versus the 70s and the 80s. You know, trucking was a lot different then because technology is different. You know, you had a lot of mom and pop truck stops, you know, with real homemade cooking and everything. And nowadays those places are few and far between. It's all these giant truck stops with fast food, and it's a totally different culture than it was, you know, back, I'd say, in the early 90s.
yeah, it's pretty obvious. Like all the fast foods that are attached to every truck stop nowadays, it's not helping you out, not in your favor whatsoever. So, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask you really quick, because a lot of people have this question: is when you're spot on, when you're following everything really well, what does a typical day of eating look like for you?
So if I'm following my plan, I usually start fasting between 7 or 8 o'clock. I try not to eat past 8 o'clock. That's just my personal preference. And I usually fast anywhere between 16 to 18 hours. I usually prefer 16 8. That's what I like. And I usually start usually have my first meal maybe 11, 12 o'clock. Because I'm a huge breakfast fan. I could eat breakfast foods all day long and not get tired of it. So that was one thing I had to do. I had to stop that. So that's why I pushed my fast till 11, 12, sometimes 1 p.m. Uh, usually, uh, usually I'll do some hamburger patties and some eggs. I'm a big egg fan. I could eat eggs all day long. Uh, the last the last few months, my way of eating has not been the best. But when I'm on plan, I usually try to do that. I'll incorporate some avocado, uh, some broccoli every once in a while. But my tastes have changed so much in the last 6 or 7 months that I don't crave the things that I was eating a year ago. And so, I eat a lot of meat, a lot of fish, a lot of chicken, a lot of pork. Um, and so I try to have that one big meal around lunchtime, and then I'll have my second meal 5, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and it's usually probably like some sort of steak. Right now, chuck eye is my go-to. Um, and I'll have that and maybe some rice cauliflower with that. Big fan of rice cauliflower, and it seems like ever since I've stopped having that stuff that I used to eat every day, when I do eat it, it it don't fill me up, number one, and so it always disagrees with me. So I try my best to stay on that plan just to avoid having the stomach issues.
Now, are you pretty much keto? Because you mentioned you're going to carnivore a little bit and earlier on, but are you pretty much keto?
When the probably first 3 or 4 months of my journey, I was keto, but then I moved. I think it was May the 1st. I was strict carnivore for about 2 months, and then I started introducing some uh, more carbs. It was more, it was the rice cauliflower, it was broccoli. I used to be a huge fan of Brussels sprouts. Now, before January of 23, you couldn't pay me enough. If you had said, here's $1,000, Eric, eat this Brussels sprout, I'd turn around and walk away because I just could not eat them. But when I first went, keto, I started eating them. I started eating greens. I'm from Alabama and I don't like greens. Um, I grew up, I still remember this to the day. My great grandmother, she was 93 when she passed, but that was ironically was in 1992, 1993. I remember her making poke salad in her house, and I'd come home from school and smell that. I'm like, I'll never eat that stuff. So, but I started eating turnip greens. I started eating spinach. I started eating mustard greens, and loved it. But when I stopped eating that and I started eating more meat, I just I just don't like it anymore. I just don't have that taste for it anymore. So I I would say really probably the last part of 2023, I was mostly, I would say, the low carb, high fat. I was eating some vegetables here and there, sauerkraut, rice cauliflower, but uh, when I was doing jiu-jitsu, I was training 5 days a week, so I was really expending a lot of energy. So it really, I don't want to say it really didn't matter what I ate, but we was training so hard, it really didn't matter because we were just going so hard. Let's see, it was May the 1st, I was 365, and so by September the 1st, I was 308. So I lost 50 something pounds in that time period, and you know, even when I wasn't exercising, I still stayed the same weight. I didn't gain, I didn't lose. So I was like, this is what I got to keep doing. So when I fell off, and it it's really to me it's amazing how I can be off of that plan for a week and just balloon up, and it's, but being keto slash low carb is that's what I have to do. I have to do that. Uh, if not, I start trending back the way I was before, and I don't like that,
Yeah, absolutely. So so you when you're following your diet, you're following your way of eating. Obviously, you do jujitsu for working out and everything like that. One, are you still doing it? And two, are there workouts that you have added other than just the no, I don't want to say other than just jujitsu because that kicks your butt,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
But what does like your workout routine look like usually?
If my coach is watching, Coach Eric, I wish I was back. Well, no, it's Thursday night. I'm sorry, he's during class right now. No, I haven't been training. Like I said, I got injured in October of last year, and I broke a bone in my foot, and it took a long time to heal. And then I went right back in there and got hurt, re-aggravated it, and I was out another 6 weeks. So I started having some shoulder issues too, and I just had to chalk that up to being 45. I mean, this is something I wish I'd have started in my 20s or maybe even as a teenager. But as much as I love it, my body just could not handle it, and so I started going back to the gym more. I started lifting weights, and then I incorporated sprints and started jump rope. Jump rope is probably my favorite new form of exercise because I hadn't done it since I was a kid, And so, uh, let's see, what was it, about 3 weeks ago? I did my first 5K. Uh, I kind of got the bug for that. I would like to do another one. Uh, I want to get more into jump rope. I'm going to try to get me a proper jump rope for what I need, but I really want to get back into more walking. I fell off on my walking the last few months, and that's really how I started exercising uh, back in 23, was just walking, trying to get steps in. But that you know I try to tell people, I try to be as transparent as possible, and one of the biggest things that hurt me when I fell off the wagon was I stopped exercising, and it I had got an injection in my right shoulder, and I was using that as an excuse to not do anything, because when I went to the gym, I wanted to do the things that was aggravating my shoulder, like the strict military overhead press. Of course, uh, I was doing bent over rows with a barbell, and just I wasn't helping myself, and so um, I feel like I've got to get back to doing that, and that goes along the line with my way of eating. When I fall off that and I fall off what I'm doing, everything starts trending up. So we're about to get back on track, and I'm looking forward to it. And another thing too is when I do those overnight runs on driving, it's just the next day I'm just so wore out, And a lot of people don't realize that when they see a person driving a truck, they think, they're just sitting up there riding. It's really taxing. You've got to watch out for yourself and everybody else out there, and it's just not sitting up there holding the wheel. You're it's a stressful environment. So, but yeah, I feel like I need to get back into my exercise routine, and I feel like once I do that, I'll be better prepared to handle those stressful situations. And when those binge feelings come up, I can go out there and hit the jump rope, or do some squats or something, something to get your mind off of it.
Right, absolutely. Man, I'll tell you what though, I wish I could jump rope. I saw you starting to jump rope, and my brain to hand to feet just do not get on the same page. I am successful if I can get 4 times around. It's that whole rubbing your head, patting your belly thing for me, and my brain just don't do that. So if you have any tips, feel free to let me know because I can't make my brain work. But something you hit on that is so darn true. Once we get sedentary, our bodies just want to stay in that, I was gonna say rhythm, but it's the lack of rhythm. It just wants to stay sedentary, and moving is so much more difficult. But when we're in that routine and we're moving and the body's working and we're doing what we're supposed to, I guess it's just habit really. Once you get in that cycle, your body wants to go with that cycle, and it's I think is the key there. You made a good point on that.
So to kind of piggyback off that, when we was training jiu-jitsu 5 days a week, we had 3 days a week that was a 5:30 a.m. class. So I'm a morning person, but it takes me a little while to get going. And so, a lot of the people would wake up at 4:30 or 5 and go straight to class. Well, it takes me about an hour to get going. So I would get up at 3:30 and, mill around and get ready and get my day going, because as soon as class is over, I'd have to come home, take a shower, and go straight to work because my work day starts at 7:30. And so after an hour-long class, it's about a 25-minute drive one way from the gym back to the house. And so when I was in that routine, I would go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning. I love doing that because there's nobody there, maybe 1 or 2 people. And so when I got off of that routine, I really felt myself, man, I really don't want to get up at 3. I'm not getting up at 3. Okay, well, I'll get up at 3:30. I'm not getting up at 3:30. So that was one thing. And staying up later too. So I've set a hard goal for myself, and I've put a note in my phone, and I get a notification every 15 minutes or so that starting this Sunday, we're going to bed. We're going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Now, it's going to be tough, on the days where I'm on the road. But if I'm at home and I don't have plans the next day, we're going to bed at 8 o'clock. We're going to get up at 3. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to get that done, and then we'll go to work. So I feel like if I can get back in that routine, because that was working for me, and then as soon as I got off that old way, like you was saying, hey, this is nice. Let's sleep in.
Yeah.
Today I didn't get up till 6:45, and that's late for me, but I didn't feel good either. I was like, man, I don't feel good. I had my days mixed up. I was like, it's Saturday, I can sleep in. And I looked down at my watch and it said Thursday. I was like, I better get up. I got to be at work in 45 minutes.
So I had a question for you on your health. You were mentioning that, actually, I am going to shut my mouth really quick and let Robyn ask a question.
Oh, well, you're certainly allowed to ask questions, Scott, but we do actually have some questions coming in on the chat. So I wanted to make sure I touched on before you change subjects. Our friend AJ is here, and he wants to know if your jump rope videos are going to make it back on X. And I think we all have that question because they were great videos.
Well, AJ and Robyn, I want to start doing them again. And that's a really good question. And I was going to say something about it earlier, but I didn't get to it. But, with weight loss, you always have a lot of loose skin. And right now, my stomach was so big, and I've still got a lot of fat in my stomach, but to be blunt, I really need to get some better compression, because when I do jump rope, my stomach's basically, I did a funny video about it, but I called it my stomach was clapping for me. But and it causes a lot of chafing, and it's uncomfortable. And so what I started doing was actually wearing my jiu-jitsu rash guard, and so that helps a lot. But yeah, we'll start seeing some more jump rope videos. I've got one in my cart for elite jumps that I need to just go ahead and pay for it and have it sent over, because the jump rope that I got now, I think it's too little and it's more like a speed rope. And I'm, like Scott said, I'm really not that coordinated, but it's I need to get me a proper rope and a mat because I'm jumping on concrete. So we're definitely going to see some more jump rope videos soon. I had a lot of fun making them, but uh, yeah,
Yeah, you're like singing along and jumping, and like it's, I mean, it's fun to watch, and it's not about your body, it's about the fact that you're doing it. But yeah, if it hurts, clearly get yourself to a spot where it's not a painful thing to do. And we would all love to see them back, because yeah, I know I would see them, and others I'm sure saw them and thought the same thing, like, wow, he's out there jumping rope every day, and I'm not even getting up out of this couch. So it's a pretty inspiring thing to see. So I'm going to switch gears because some other questions rolled in before we were talking about exercise, and what we were asking you about, you're falling off the rails a little bit. So Rose asks if you have anyone that you talk to, or any groups that you belong to help you while you're, struggling.
Well, that's a good question, Rose. I would say my community, and I don't want to say, well, I guess you could say my community that I've built on X is probably the most supportive, other than close friends and family in real life, that I have. You know, I've kind of, I don't want to say I've built a following, because I'm just an old country boy from Alabama that, just trying to make himself better. I've built a lot of relationships and hopefully lifelong friendships just in the last year or so. I have a lot of people that I can confide in if I need to, have somebody listen to me vent or whatever. One of my really good friends that I met on a fishing forum probably 20 years ago now. Yeah, it's about 20 years ago. He talked to me for about 3 hours one night while I was driving to Atlanta in a truck. We weren't really talking about food or anything. We were just talking about life in general. And that's the way, we have conversations like that. So, there's a lot of people that I've met on X, and, to me, it seems like I've got probably more people relate to my issues, and I can relate to theirs on that platform than I can any other platform. And it's just, I feel like I've built a little community for myself. So there's always people there to push me along. Always people there to support me, even on my bad days. They always have words of praise for me, and tell me to get my butt in gear and get moving again. So yeah, I would say in that aspect, yes. In real life, probably not. There's a lot of I know there's a lot of people that I'm friends with growing up and friends in real life that basically probably get tired of hearing me telling them that sugar's the devil, you know. So it is what it is, but yeah, I would say I do have people to talk to.
I think I've talked to Scott about this more than once, and I know that we've had two other guests, Jen and Tim, that have been on our show before, that people tend to really follow on X. And, you put yourself out there. You're very vulnerable. You put yourself out there because you think, I need somebody to be accountable to. So let me just be accountable to everyone on the whole world in the internet. And you put it out there, and then all of a sudden you get all these followers. And then suddenly, and you're doing great. Everybody's giving you all, singing your praises and following you, and you get followers and followers, and and then it's like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, because you're just a regular guy. You're just this dude, and all these people are watching you all the time, and then you trip and fall. And then it's like, I just let all of these other people down. So I'm wondering, I know I've had that conversation with Scott. I've had it with Tim and Jen. I'm wondering do you feel that same way? Do you sometimes feel like maybe going on Twitter and being open about it was harder than just trying to do this on your own?
I would agree, because when I first started my Twitter/X account, it was to talk about Alabama football and bass fishing. That's how I come up with bamabass. But for the longest, I was stuck at probably like 1,000, maybe 1,500 followers. And then when I started posting about weight loss, it's just kind of took off from there. I'm not going to say I've got a big following, but to me, my following is, I'm thankful for every one of my followers, because as I said, they push me along. But there's always, I think one of the biggest fears I had was people that just watch to see you fail, to throw it in your face, ha, you failed, you failed. But other than the every once in a while troll, I haven't had that. I haven't had anybody do that. I've had more supported than I have uh, people trying to bring you down. Uh, so to answer your question, I do feel like sometimes I let people down, because, and I know you guys probably get the same thing, but I had to turn off my notifications because my phone was constantly going off just from X. And I use my phone in my business and my work, to communicate with my driver. So I was always getting notifications. But there was a time where I would get so many DMs, "Hey Eric, can you help me? Can you help me?" And I would tell them, "Look, this is what worked for me. This, I would try this. If it don't work for you, I always point them to Vinnie. Uh, Go to Vinnie." Uh, and it really felt good that people was looking to me for support. And so, like you said, when I would have a stumble, I'm like, well, I've got to be accountable for myself. We'll put it out there. uh, I think the first time that I posted pictures without my shirt on, I thought, well, this is it. You're about to get all this hate mail. You're about to get all, you know but I actually got more support. I actually got more people, rooting me on. And that really resonated with me, because I was getting more support on an app from people I've never met all across the globe than I was in my real life. You know, I, I say real life, y'all know what I mean. People in your day-to-day life. And so, that was big for me. So I do feel like I feel like sometimes I really do owe it to people, and I want to show them that, like I said, I'm a real dude. I stumble every day, but it's getting back up and trying again is what's important.
And I think I really appreciate how real you are. Like, you can tell the difference between somebody who's just trying to get followers and somebody who's just trying to live their life but putting it out there. And you're just living your life and putting it out there. That's very real, and people can really resonate with that. But that fear, the reason why I had the conversation with the other three is, feeling that weight and feeling like people are watching you, and like making it about other people and what they might think about you, instead of really going back to why you were doing it in the first place. And since you're kind of in a trip and fall now, that's why I mention it, because I don't want you to think we're over here, judging you. Like I said before we started recording, I'm really happy that you decided to still come on, even though you are having this moment right now. Like, you have been very successful, and you can be very successful again, and we're all cheering for you. And anybody else that might be out there trying to judge you, you can just block them and roll on. That is the beauty of the socials. Those negative people you can just cut out of your life, and you can't do that with actual real life family members, especially. You just have to keep putting a smile on your face and moving on. I do have one more question, and that is from my husband, Matt, who also trains BJJ and who is currently off the mats because of an injury. So he feels your pain. He's asked if you've ever looked at any of Robert Sikes' routines.
I have not. I'm not familiar with that, so I'm sorry, Matt. I can't answer that question for you. I
That's
just say
okay.
that you know, when I got injured, as far as jiu-jitsu goes, it devastated me because we were training 5 days a week, and our competition was just literally a week away. So I went ahead and competed anyway because uh, I guess I got a shot at the doctor's office and I was feeling better and I was staying off my foot. But, hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done the competition. I probably should have just, took it easy. But yeah, that's something I wish I was still doing. I just physically, I just can't no more. It's just, it is what it is.
I literally just had that conversation with him today. It's like, yeah, you're training all the time and you hurt yourself in training like 2 days before your competition and you compete anyway. And then you have in 5 months where you can't get on the mats again and you're all mad about it. So thanks. You just helped
Sorry,
me out.
Matt. So,
He's in the other room listening, so he's gonna
So
be
it's funny that you brought that up because I use MyFitnessPal, I use Happy Scale, and I use Zero longevity app. That's my fasting app, and the Happy Scale is the what I keep my weight on, and of course I log my food with MyFitnessPal. So if you go and look at I post from time to time, and I haven't done it in a while. So if you go back and you look at that, I started at 457 and I'm going down, going down, going down, going down, steadily going down till I got injured. Then it starts going up, starts going up, starts going up. And I'm like, just go back and do it. Deal with the pain, deal with it. But then I go back and I'm like, okay, so when your foot, so the bone I broke in my foot is I thought I had turf toe, but it's your big toe, and it's where your big toe connects to your foot. There's a little bone, probably about the size of my pinky, the end of my pinky here. I broke that completely. I fractured it. It was completely broken too, and it was just floating. And so every time I'd step, I'm putting pressure on that. And so, as Matt can tell you, if you ain't got your feet, you're not in jiu-jitsu. I mean, you can get on the ground, but a lot of the stuff that you have to do on the ground, you're pushing with your feet. You're pushing with your toes. And so when I did go back, I started having shoulder issues. It went from my feet to my shoulders, and I was sitting there at work one day, and it felt like my arms were literally going to just fall off my body. I mean, they was how bad they were hurting. It was just, I was like, let's just take them off now. So that was something that I really had to grapple with, in my mind, because that I feel like jiu-jitsu changed my life. It did. I mean, I was taking all my stress and I was putting it on that mat. And at the end of the day, the stress was gone. I was sleeping like a baby and I was feeling great. But in the end, I turned 46 this month. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with the injuries. Like it was affecting. I wore a boot for 2 months, so I couldn't do any driving. I couldn't drive. Couldn't drive a truck, for 2 months. And I drive a manual transmission car, so that was fun. Driving with the boot on. So yeah, I just had to weigh the pros and cons of it, and the cons just definitely outweighed the pros. If somebody'd say, okay, you can do it for a year and you won't get hurt, I'd do it. But the reality is, the injuries are going to happen. unfortunately. But it's just not something I can do anymore, and I miss it. I really do.
Well, I understand. And Matt said, I can relate, and you're not helping me. So, but when it affects your livelihood, that's a big deal. But what I'm hearing though is that you don't have your thing. Your, the thing is gone, and it's how do you find the thing, and what is the new thing going to be? And I think it's all related. If I could just editorialize, I guess, for a little bit, but I think it's all related that you're having this little stumble. You don't have your outlet anymore. You're having trouble waking up, and then you're up late at night, and it causes you to want to binge, and then it just keeps going over and over and over again. So I know that a couple years ago I went through a pretty bad stumble myself, and what finally brought me back out was, we talk about accountability and motivation. I don't know if you've gone back and listened to any episodes, but Matt was actually one of our guests too, and he talks about how he got over his injury and got back to back on track. But like for me, what I had to do was I literally had to write out my plan, and I had to execute that plan every day. So it wasn't really like finding an accountability partner, though I had them. I had to answer to myself, to my core values and my goals, and do those things. So if that's something that works for you, I'm just putting it out there as a suggestion. I had asked the people who were watching us to put their suggestions out there, and that's where Rose was asking, do you have someone that you can talk to? I know I'm happy to be there for you. I know Scott is. I know everybody, all of your friends are on X are there to help you through this, because this isn't an easy time. It's like what you want to do, but the things that you want to do to get there are now stripped away from you. So how do you regroup, and how do you turn that into what the next step is to get you going again, and find that thing, the thing that's going to keep you going? So I just want to put that out there.
That's a very good point, and I thank you for making it. When I started doing jujitsu, it was something that it felt like it gave me purpose. It gave me something that I got to look forward to. When I was injured, I tried to replace that by going to the gym, and my orthopedic doctor was not happy because he's like, you don't need to be doing that. You need to. I mean, I was deadlifting in a boot, so I mean, I was doing everything in the boot, but I even went walking. I was doing 5,000 steps in the boot. And when I was training, that had me centered. I was centered. I felt like, I couldn't get enough training. I train all the time. Uh, when it gets into you, and I know Matt can probably back me up on this. It's You're fighting for your life, but you ain't got to worry about dying. you know, you can tap out. You can give up when you get to that point where you're about to pass out. You can give up, but you get to go again. You can go again, and that was such a stress. I could release so much stress on there, and then turn around and get in the car and go home, and leave it all there. My grandmother, uh, my grandmother passed away in July of last year, and the day she passed, we had training that morning, and sorry, that morning it felt like nothing was wrong, and then 2 hours later she's gone. But that time that morning, it was it was like everything was right in the world.
Mhm.
And then you leave the mat, and then it's not right again. But yeah, I miss it. I miss it a lot. But you like you said, I got to find my other thing. Maybe pickleball. I was playing pickleball with one of my really good friends, and doing jujitsu at the same time. And I kind of joked because I was a big guy. I was out there like 385, 370, doing pickleball. And I fell and got hurt. I kind of like jammed my elbow into the court, and it just a huge pump knot. And so I was like, I got to take it easy at jujitsu. I got hurt. They're like, when did you get hurt? I was like, oh, it was pickleball. Because, I mean, if you look and see, there's so many people now that are doing pickleball that the orthopedic injuries are like skyrocketing because people that are sedentary and not doing anything are going out there and trying to play, go wide open in pickleball. But, I've thought about that. And I think I mentioned the 5K earlier. I'm not a runner, but I could see that being something. The jump rope, that's jump rope is such an intense exercise. That's probably the closest thing other than running sprints to getting to jiu-jitsu. And I know Matt can back me up on this. When you're in a roll, a 2 or 3 minute roll seems like 2 hours. That's some of the most intense exercise that I've ever done in my life is being on the mat. So it's going to be tough for me to find something to replicate that. But I think if I can find several things to keep me busy, I think I'll be all right. So
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about purposely putting yourself into a really stressful position and then figuring out how to get out of it. And I know that jujitsu is like definitely that thing. It's not something that I do, but when I see everyone else because I watch while they're training, and I'm like, it's like a controlled chaos. So I can see why so many people enjoy that and get their release from that. And it really does translate into life. Like, you're going to be in these stressful situations. How do you get out of it? So I'm sorry that that's not working out for you, but I am confident that you will find what your thing is, because otherwise it sounds like we need to wrap you up in bubble wrap and then send you out into the world because you keep falling and hurting yourself. So we don't want to see that happening either. But you will find your thing. It's just gonna, whatever the steps that it took for you to find jujitsu, now you got to go through all the steps to find the next thing, but it's out there for you.
And I said I can't ever do it again. That's not true. I can do it anytime I want to. Maybe competing is not in my. Maybe I don't need to train to compete. Maybe I just need to train to live. So, when I was training hard, I was training to compete because that was our goal. We were competing. I was gung ho for it. So maybe I just need to go back, and if I do it, maybe give up a little sooner, or tell my training partner, hey, take it easy on this shoulder, or take it easy on this leg. But then the competitive nature in me gets fired up, and I want to go all out, and I'll injure myself again. But I think you're right. I think that's something that I've been looking at myself. Pickleball is really taking off around here, and we're fixing to. There's a place close to here. They're opening up a new indoor court pretty soon. So, there's things I just got to get out there and do it. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
I was going to turn it over to Scott, but I want to say that Matt said not to compete and don't roll with the young bucks. If you go back, we actually literally had that conversation today as well. It's like, who do I roll with? I'm injured. I'm the old guy on the mat. So who do I roll with? That's going to keep me safe. And if your gym's not very big, our where he trains is not very big. It's a bunch of young guys there. He's like, who do I roll with? That's a hard one. Again, pickleball sounds pretty intense too. So make sure you're wrapped up in your bubble wrap.
Yep. I'm just a naturally competitive person. I always have been. When growing up, I was an only child, and I had a younger cousin, a couple, 2, 3 years younger than me. We used to play basketball till dark in my grandparents' driveway. I mean, we'd start off. We're going to go to 50, then we'll go to 75, we'll go to 100. We would play backyard football against each other. So and Matt's right. In our gym, we have 2 high school wrestlers. So they're 17, 18-year-old. There's a couple of early 30s professional firefighters, and so this my instructor's probably about 4 or 5 years older than me. I think maybe he may be 5 or 6, but he's right. You can't. Them young guys, they'll wear you out quick, and then you get that competitive kick in, and you'll end up hurting yourself trying to prove yourself to the young guys. So I agree 100% with him.
Well, Eric, hey, we've come to that time. We've used up all of your time. We appreciate you being on here. But before we let our guests go, we do follow up with a constant question, and that is, if you have one piece of advice you could share with somebody going through their journey, what would that be?
If I had to give anybody that's wanting to start this journey a solid piece of advice, I would say definitely change your way of eating to whole 1-ingredient foods. I feel like if everybody that's overweight, obese, morbidly obese, if they would put away the processed food, find, whether it be meat, vegetables, whatever, get rid of the highly processed stuff, get rid of all the stuff that tastes good. If it tastes good, you got to get rid of it because it's not good for you. And trust me, somebody that has lost 150 pounds in less than a year and then went back to that way and gained 25 right back, I think, to me, and it's hard, trust me, I know, but water, unsweet tea, black coffee, and whole 1-ingredient foods, you can't lose with that. And add in walking. To me, walking is probably the best exercise you can do. Get up and move. Eat whole 1-ingredient foods and get up and move. That's my advice.
Perfect.
But it's hard for people. It's hard to do. We've been eating this junk for so long, and a lot of people don't want to admit it, but they're addicted to it. I am, but they don't want to say that. So that's what I would say to somebody.
Sounds good. I think we both, Robyn and I, completely agree with you on that. So before we get out of here, where can people find you? What socials? Where do they find you?
Okay, well, you can find me on X at bamabass. I'm on Instagram at bamabass78. You can find me on TikTok, but I'm not as active on there. You can look for at Revolution of Eric, and I'm on Facebook as Eric Couch. So I've got the same profile picture on X, Instagram, and Facebook. But you can find me on there, and you can look up. I think it's at Revolution of Eric on YouTube. I'm gonna try to start doing some more videos, but most of my content is on X.
Sounds good. We appreciate it. Thank you for getting that out there. Robyn, you have anything else?
No, we covered it all. Thank you so much for joining us, Eric. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you. And on behalf of Robyn Dobbins and Eric Couch, I'm Scott King, and thank you so much for watching and listening to Less Than Me Success Stories. You guys have a good evening.